Professional Supercross racer, team owner, and one of the hardest working privateers in the sport, Bubba Pauli has made a name for himself not only on the track but also by building opportunities for other riders through his team. In this episode, we talk about his journey into racing, the grind of being a privateer, and how passion and perseverance drive everything he does.
You know, the last day training at our practice track here at the shop, and you know, driving home that day, I was just like, this is the last time, you know, like I'm doing this as a professional with this meaning and this, you know, everything behind it.
Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com, where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now.
What's up, One Gang? We got a great show for you guys here today. We got Bubba Pauli, who's owner of International Supercross Race Team, LLC, ISRT Kawasaki. Bubba, welcome to the show, buddy. Been looking forward to this one. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here and talk some motocross stuff with you guys.
Taylor, man.
Nice. We're excited to nerd out. So let's start with young Bubba. Where'd you grow up, and how did motorcycles first come into your life?
I'm from Edwardsville, Illinois, born and raised. I was 10 years old when I got my first dirt bike, which is a little bit later start than most guys competing around my caliber. So
sure.
I grew up racing some BMX, you know, just loved two wheels, ramping, going fast. Begged my parents for a dirt bike, and a buddy of mine took me to Supercross a couple of years prior to that. Finally, you know, my parents got me a dirt bike for my birthday, and now the rest is kind of a snowball effect from there.
What was your first bike?
Kawasaki KLX 110. It was a 2003. I still got it downstairs in the shop.
Yes.
No kidding. Nice.
So was racing always the dream, or did it sort of evolve?
Oh, no. Like I said, man, I went to a Supercross race in St. Louis with a childhood friend of mine. I was 8 years old or so when I went there, and I wanted to do that. I've never rode a dirt bike then. I was just like, that's what I want to do. I want to do that. And like I said, we did a little bit of BMX racing and stuff. So racing, competing was just always in me. And, you know, as soon as I got on a dirt bike, I was just pretending I was racing around the backyard, you know, as some of the champions.
So you were a natural coming on? I mean, from the BMX stuff, I mean, you felt pretty comfortable as soon as you jumped on once you learned how to shift?
I thought I did. Looking back, I really wasn't. You know, I thought I was a pro immediately, but you know, there was a big learning curves. You know, the bike that I started on was very, very, you know, beginner friendly. You know, I moved up to the 85 after that. It was like going to a different world. I couldn't ride that bike for a few years, so it took some time for sure, and then constantly just evolving from there. But again, looking back on it, you know, it progressed really quickly. In the moment, it felt like it was forever.
That's cool. Well, how old were you when you first started racing?
I was 11, so I rode in the backyard for about a year. The first time I ever rode anywhere else was at a race, about a little local track, about 20 minutes from me, Splinter Creek Dirt Riders, and begged my parents to go out there, and they thought it was going to be one and done. And
little did they know.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you remember about your first race, man? You're what, 11 years old? You've been practicing for a year in the backyard, zooming around, tearing up everything. What do you remember that first race? I mean, everybody remembers that vivid, you know, play time that changed their life.
Yeah, so it was in late October, early November. I don't remember the specific date, but it was wet, kind of cold, Midwest time of year. And I remember the night before, we had an early morning. I had to leave the house at like 7 a.m. You know, well, back then, just playing baseball and stuff prior to that, you know, it's not like we were early risers by any means on a weekend to go do something. So get the bike in the back of the truck, and we didn't have like regular tie downs. So we're like trying to figure out, never put a motorcycle in the back of a truck before, other than when it came home from the dealership when my dad bought it. So I remember we had bungee cords, like, and put the bike against the side of the bed. And I was like, man, the bike's going to get all scratched up. But it's like, we couldn't really tie it down. So obviously that was pre-race. And then, you know, the next morning going to the race, you know, raced the 110 and the 65 class. This was prior to them having like pit bike classes. Like nobody really
Right.
raced a 110 before. You know, those were just a
Mhm.
play bike. So they didn't really know what class to put me in. They wanted to put me in with the super minis and the 100cc two strokes, but that was not the thing. So the guy that owned the dealership was talking to the track, I remember, and he's like, no, like he's going to race with the 65. Just go with the wheelbase. Like I said, AMA had no ruling on what the bike was. So they stuck me in there, and, you know, I'm kind of thinking, you know, like, oh, I'm fast in my yard. Like, I want to win, you know, and I'm racing
Yeah.
65s on a 110. So I did finish mid-pack. There was 15 or so riders. A couple of my childhood friends were racing that.
Nice.
Cool.
One of them their first race as well. The other one, it was his second race. And I thought I was passing the one. Turns out I was lapping him.
Whoa.
He'd got stuck in the mud a couple times, this and that, and so you know, two of the riders I beat, you know, were my best friends. But
That's
it
fun.
was cool. The second moto, some local kids were like, "Let's get this bike faster. You know, pull the baffle out of that thing. It'll be faster." You know. Okay, so I go out there. You know, just ran. It sounds like crap.
Right.
You know, after the race, my dad's like, "We got to put that back in." No, it's faster. So
It just sounded better. That's all.
yeah. So
That's so
so
funny.
it was very cool. I remember a lot from that. I
That's
was
cool,
so
man.
nervous in the starting line. You know, like I'm gonna pee my pants. You know, just like
Yeah.
it was crazy. But like I said, my first bike's downstairs in the shop. I got my first gear set behind me on the wall over
So
there. I
awesome.
can't see it from the shelf, and my first helmet right above me. So
That's cool.
it's cool looking back on that stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, were there early wins or mostly lessons learned the hard way for you?
So the second year racing, I got a KX85, so I was racing the 85 beginner class. Took me probably half the year, and I won a couple of the beginner class races. And I'm thinking like I'm the king of the world, you know, in the beginner
Right.
class.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of crashes. When I got on the 85, like I did the power band, you know, like I didn't know how to jump it. I didn't know how this thing was responding. We didn't really know you needed to change the air filter every time you rode in the dust or anything either. So I'm just fouling plugs all the time.
Right.
So I wanted to go fast. I was scared of the bike. And then I grew pretty quickly. So I was like really unbalanced on that bike. So it was pretty challenging. Learning to do some jumps, a lot of big crashes, road rash, stuff like that. No real injuries till I got on the big bikes, but it was crazy. My parents were just like, "What are you doing?" Again, I'm just thinking I'm like, you know, king of the world on this thing.
Hey, you were young, man. You were passionate.
Yeah. Before ISRT, you were riding for teams like K1 Speed. What did those early pro years teach you about the sport and the business side of racing?
Well, I mean, I learned a lot from those guys, but I'm definitely grateful for anybody that I crossed paths with, whether it was positive or negative. I learned from it, you know, and I really wasn't in the position to where I was like striving to learn. I was just striving to survive.
Right.
But the way I was wired to constantly want to be better, you know, everything was a learning curve for me, a learning experience. So, you know, I learned a lot about structure, learned a lot about just struggles and seeing what people are doing. I was always very aware and alert of things. So, you know, I could
Right.
tell when somebody wasn't happy, and
Right.
I didn't really know that back then either. So, you know, now I see other riders and I'm like, man, you guys are not aware of anything, you know, like you can't
Right.
read the room, you know, it's just people in
Yeah.
general, not necessarily riders, but
Sure.
so looking back, like I know that's a trait that I had, and that helped me get where I'm at now. So, you know, I learned from the positives, I learned from the negatives. You know, I did spend a year or so around some people that weren't very positive, didn't have much structure. That was a big experience for me as well. I'm like, I don't want to do this like this. you
Right.
know?
Oh, gotcha.
And then I did have a really close friend of mine, Michael Akite, and he was kind of like a big brother. You know, he was about 5 years older than me, and he's the first one I went out to California with, and you know, just kind of showed me the way around the races. You know, logistically, how do you do this? You know, kind of on my own. You know, as a kid, so you know, late teenager into my early 20s. You know, like I got to figure this stuff out. So you know, like I said, I'm grateful for the good and the bad. I don't think a lot of people say that, but I learned
No,
a lot
for sure.
Again,
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back,
I was getting top quality. I gave Leather Up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself. I mean, the worst things teach you the best lessons. So, I mean, that's really the reality of life. If you're always winning, you're really not, there's not much you're learning. So, let me ask you this. You launched the International Supercross race team in 2017, while still competing. What made you take that leap, and how did you manage running a team while also being a full-time athlete?
So to take a step back, I mentioned my good friend and kind of mentor, Michael Kaiden.
Yep.
We actually started the team together. So we were doing a lot of traveling together and everything like that. And it's like, hey, if we just kind of participate as a group, traveling to these races, we can probably get some more out of it and cut costs down. And cutting costs down was the biggest thing, really.
Absolutely.
So, like, hey, we'll just split it and we'll kind of put our sponsors together and create this little team image. And unfortunately, he stepped away from racing the next year. Him and his wife were, getting ready to start having kids and stuff like that. So, the next year it was, like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I got to kind of take the reins on this whole thing. But then I really started putting some structure behind it. So we learned a lot that year, with some sponsors that came through and some sponsors that, didn't deliver. So, and I ended up going from a 2-rider kind of co-founder team to a 3-rider team, and I was in charge. And the next year we brought in an international rider from Spain. So that had never really, just a couple trips to the United States, but has never really spent time here. His English was pretty rough,
Right.
That was a big step, and it just all kind of happened naturally though. So went to a 3-rider team. We had one mechanic at the time for the 3 riders and some part-time guys that would come in each weekend helping out. So
cool.
There was many moments I'm just like, what do we do? Like,
Right.
What's going on? So
How old are you at this point?
32. Or
You're
back
30. Back then, yeah.
I've been 24, 23.
So you're super young too, on top of that.
Yeah.
With that kind of responsibility.
Yeah. I remember back then a lot of people would say, they'd ask how old I am, and they would say, oh, you're young, or you're doing a lot for how young you are, and this and that. I'm just like, I never felt,
Right.
Now I'm 32. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I was pretty young, like some of the guys I work with now and deal with, I'm like, when they're in their early 20s, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys are kids. What are you doing? I'm like, I hope I wasn't like that back then. But
So funny.
So I guess you never really know
how it changes. Hey, let me ask you this. You kind of brought that up while you were talking about, some sponsor is good, and some sponsors weren't. When you say they weren't, I'm just asking, just anybody, maybe a young bubbler out there that's kind of forming or doing this type of stuff. How do you trust the sponsor when it comes to, what do they back their word out of?
I mean, there's always two sides to every story, right?
Right.
We try to get contracts in front of everybody, outline the obligations from both sides. Some sponsors will say, a lot of teams don't hold up their end, a lot of riders don't hold up their end and do things they're supposed to do. I always try to over deliver. It's something under promise and over deliver.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But most of the time it comes down to sponsors falling short last couple payments.
Okay.
Sometimes just being super late, sometimes just not paying at all. Even with a contract, it's if it's a $10,000 sponsor, what are you gonna do, right? It's like you can sue them over 10 grand. And it's like,
right.
And they know that, and they take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, it's everybody always comes in super excited,
Yeah.
oh, this is great. We're going to put my name on this and do this and do that. Sometimes it's management change, later in the year, throughout the year,
Okay.
and this and that. So it's tough. Over the years, I've, learned to kind of read people right off the bat a little bit better, but they'll still catch you off guard, when you least expect it.
Yeah.
Without good references and stuff like that. For us, it costs so much money to go racing. We kind of try to take anything we can get, really. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it's, you don't ever. I've been in a position where I've doubted people before, and they turn out to be the best sponsors.
Nice.
And then some of the ones you're like, oh, I think they're going to be good. The ones 15 grand.
Right.
Wow.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Thanks for
And
answering that, man. I was curious about that.
Yeah. And scheduling, I mean, in the racing world is everything too. You have to have that. That money is important to have at the right time. I would
It's
imagine.
everything.
Yeah. We're doing 31 races a year. So, every day I'm going through budgeting and, all the spreadsheets and, projections and what money's out where, hey, do we have enough to cover the payroll next week? Like there's times of the year where we don't. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, waiting on, you're waiting on one payment at a certain time. It's like, well, if that gets back up to 3, now you're in trouble. So,
Yeah.
it's like to hold the people accountable that are funding your effort is difficult because you don't want to push people and piss them off. And then
Exactly. Yeah. It's like walking a tightrope. You got to balance
man.
that with the polite, like, hey, you guys, are you going to pay me? That was a week ago.
Yeah.
That's difficult. So you mentioned earlier that being kind of new at it and wondering, there were a lot of moments where you were thinking, what do I do? You also mentioned balancing payroll, figuring those little challenges out. But in the early years of ISRT, what were some of the biggest challenges in building that program from the ground up?
I think I actually have this notebook right here on this desk, actually. Yeah.
That's so awesome that you have everything by you, man. I love that.
Man, that notebook was, all my budgeting and just everything was done through there. Like I did everything pen and paper. And my dad owns a small business, a lawn care business, and he's a pen and paper type of guy. Like, he plugs stuff in on the computer when he's printing out a bill for a customer. Everything else is pen and paper. So I'm like, okay, that's what I do, right? Just record everything every day, write it down, scratch it off, rewrite.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
So that's what I thought. Obviously, this is a little bit different business than the lawn care business, but even there, I
Sure.
wouldn't do that in 2025.
Right.
So
Yeah.
another good friend of mine, Ryan Kuntz, who helped kind of a lot in the early on years to really get us up and going. He kind of turned me on some different software programs and just getting things on the computer, get things digitalized and just all of that. So that helped out a lot. It was kind of messy, but back then our budget was, the first year we had a 90,000, I think is what it was, to go racing. And, now
For a first year, that sounds pretty good.
yeah, that was again, like all in, but there was a lot of money spent out of pocket to go racing, that year. So
Sure.
it was difficult, so one of the best things that I learned back then was, say you have a total of $90,000 to do $200,000 worth of effort. It's like, where does I don't have that money in my own pocket. I can't, so
Right. Where
to
does
be
that come
mean and
from?
lean, we call it. You gotta cut the things out that are necessary. I use the phrase, we cut costs, but we don't cut corners. We're here to go racing. We cover the things that cost to go racing first. When it comes to, I remember the first year it was like, hotels and lodging and stuff, but that was on the riders. Like the team didn't cover that. We're going racing, you can sleep in a tent if you want. Like that's not my problem. So obviously now we cover all the lodging. So, but certain things like that, certain things with the equipment of the motorcycles, the things that make the bikes better, not necessarily the things that make the bikes look cool.
Yeah, that's
Right on.
awesome, man. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that one. That's really a great understanding of the struggles that forming a team and traveling the circuit. Can't be easy, man. Can't be easy, especially, man, you were doing it at 24 years old, which is freaking amazing. So that's kudos to you on that. Hey, you're based in Southern Illinois, away from the Southern California hub where most teams operate. How has being based outside the industry bubble shaped your identity or path as a, kind of a privateer?
Man, that's a great question. There's so many things to that. Back in, the 2000s, like every team was based out of Southern California. All the
Right.
riders live there. There's more and more guys moving east for numerous reasons. Florida's a pretty big hotspot
Yeah. Yeah.
for training. Some of the top riders out there, Georgia, North Carolina, there's a lot there. Numerous reasons, but for us, like we're just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. We said Southern Illinois. So logistically, we're in the center of the country. I love that. Life's pretty easy here.
Makes sense.
Life's pretty cheap here compared to most places.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Especially
cost
so.
effective, yeah.
So a lot of positives. Most people from my town say they hate the Midwest. They're gonna move somewhere cool. Dallas is booming right now. My sister moved to
Yeah.
Dallas. She it was the coolest thing ever.
He was
I'm
one of
just
them.
like, I don't know. Like, I've traveled in the world, spending months and months in different places. Like, to me, there's no place like home. Life's easy here.
That's cool.
But like I said, it's cheaper, and I'm very grateful from where I'm at. And the weather, December, January, February is tough, but we're traveling most of the time anyway. We're in Southern California for the races through January and most of February. So that's
You
not
guys
much of an
are
issue here.
you guys kind of like snowbirds, man. Like
Yeah,
down here,
basically.
the old people come down for the winter. You guys escape the winter and go down to the
Yeah.
sun. So that's killer.
Once we get to March here in Illinois, most of the time we're good to train here. We might have some cold days, but then normally the ground's unfrozen. There's no snow, and so we can get good training here. And then same thing, the preseason, October, November is pretty solid for us here. So I really like it here. I think there's a big opportunity to continue to grow here.
Yeah, man.
You think of like mechanics and kind of the blue collar, working force within this. There's a lot of people from the Midwest. My crew chief is from Evansville, Indiana, and he said, man, when he started, if there would have been a team this close to home, like that would have made a huge difference. He just had to grab his backpack and move to wherever the teams were at. So,
right.
Yeah.
I see in that now. We got some crew that are local here, and they get to go home, on their few off days that they get a season. So, it's there's a lot of opportunity here. I really like it. I'm grateful for where I'm at. I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, and like you said, you're centered right in the middle. So no matter which way you go, you got a great location to travel to any event around the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah, centrally located. All right, getting into some more of the fun stuff. You've had multiple top 10 championship finishes and even a top 5 overall result in the premier class. What were the breakthrough races or some of the breakthrough races that helped you feel like ISRT had truly arrived?
Man, that's a loaded question. Because I wouldn't say there's a breakthrough race that kind of help you get there. It's always the build up.
Cumulative.
With anything,
Gotcha.
the gate drops. It's like, man, the work was done during the week. The work was done in the months leading up and the years leading up to that. So, I would say some of the breakthrough moments in that is just having a good reputation, being somebody that people can trust and to go racing with you. If there's a world-class athlete, past champions, they got to trust who they're working with and what they're doing, and then you got to prove yourself with them. So, I think most of that comes down to character when you don't have the money. For us, like we definitely do not have the money just to go out and sign and hire, a race caliber winning guy, past champion, stuff like that. But, when you're somebody that's consistently there, proving yourself to kind of be the underdog, you kind of attract those things, in the right place in the right time. So those are always very good moments, when you're achieving those goals. For me, one of the best was having 2 guys at the final pro motocross race last year finish in the top 10 in the premier class. The last race of the season. That was a good feeling. I'm like, hey, the top 10 guys in the world competing in this championship, we had 2 of them.
Yeah,
That's
that's
amazing.
wild.
There was numerous factory teams that, the riders didn't even make it to the end of the season. So,
Sure.
the only other team that had 2 guys in it was a factory team also. So, that was a very good feeling. But that was, like I said, the last race of the year. So it was all year building up.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of jump back a little bit to the Privateer Challenge in 2020. You placed second, and then you came back and won it in 2022, correct?
No, I did not win it in 2022. One of the teammates won it in 22 or 23, but one of my teammates did win it the
Okay.
next year. But I did get second. The structure of that was a little bit different back then. They went from a point system to kind of a shootout for there. So
Yeah.
So I did get second. It came down to the last race. I got max points in that race, and the guy that won it finished directly behind me. So if he would have been one spot back, I would have won that one. That would have been a nice bonus that day. But
Hell yeah.
it was a $20,000 difference in the first to second in that pay. So for a
Jeez.
guy like me, that's a big difference.
That's a big check, man. No doubt about it.
He came up and congratulated me after the race, and I'm just like, dude, get away from me. Like,
Oh, really? You angry?
I did
huh?
everything I could, and I was just like,
Kick rocks.
and
Get outta
the
here.
race prior to that, I crashed in the first turn, so I
Oh.
lost a bunch of points. That was a tough one to swallow. And that was
Yeah,
2020. Back then, I mean, you guys remember, like, what was the world going to survive in 2020?
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah.
were
It was
just
a
going into
mess. It was
COVID,
a
like
mess. I know.
racing.
Right.
I'm like, oh man, I need all the money I can get. So,
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, that's a hard pill to swallow, man. All right. Well, speaking of, let's talk about setbacks. Injuries are part of the game, but your 2023 season was especially tough. How did you handle the physical and mental recovery, and what helped you push forward?
man, 2023 was, well, you guys can see it. I just my hands.
Oh shit.
That was tough. I was feeling pretty solid that year. We had some pretty big challenges through the year, but I was just kind of getting some momentum going. And a small tip over in Indianapolis, my hand was on the handlebar and I hit the dirt. And I literally just pulled the end of my thumb off, pulled the tendon out all the way up. It was rooted up into my elbow, and I had a 7.5-hour surgery right after that. Reattached it, then it died. Another surgery taken off. I lost a lot of sensation. The nerves were just completely destroyed in my hand. Grip strength was, little to none. I didn't know if I was going to be able to even hold a bottle of water. So there was a lot of uncertainty. I thought, that was the end of my career. I was doing everything I could to fight back. I didn't want that to be my end, but, if I couldn't hold on, I couldn't hold on. So,
And that's your clutch
that
hand,
was-
right?
yeah, left side clutch hand. And it's still, dude, the next year I blew out my shoulder. I was going through the whoop section and my hand came off the bar and I destroyed my right shoulder and ended up having to have a surgery on that one. So, it was,
Yeah.
even then I'm just like, is this worth it?
Right,
I
right.
wanted to get to this point, you don't do that without, just being hard-headed and determined, you're going
Right.
to push through anything. So, I fought through those surgeries and recovered from that. And, I had between that and a knee surgery I had the year before, I had 4 surgeries within 3 years. So that was tough. And like injuries are one thing, but just surgeries and recovering from surgeries, I hate it.
Yeah.
I'd rather, break my arm with no surgery 3 times than go through 1 surgery. So,
Wow.
recovering from those is no fun.
Yeah.
Last night I was in the kitchen making dinner with my wife and I'm trying to cut an onion and I'm like, can't do it. I got a knife in one hand and, so that was, just little frustrations just
So
daily,
still you have that weakness, huh?
Yeah, well, I can pinch. I can't really grip anything with this too well. So, if I'm planted on the handlebar and I kind of
Yeah.
stay forward, I can keep pressure into the hand.
Mhm.
But, as far as controlling anything, if I'm in the kitchen holding something with a knife, it's not pretty.
yeah.
Slips and slides. I don't have much feeling through here. So it's,
Will you get it back? Did the doctor say you eventually come back or no?
nah, more or less no, but
More
like I
or
say,
less no.
anything can happen. Your brain rewires through things.
Right, right.
It's probably hard to tell, but I got scars down here. They had this all pulled open. They had to do a
Shit.
graft from here to take this to recover this. This was cut down all the way into there. So, the multiple times, right? So, the trauma to the hand was, the injury, first surgery, second surgery. So there was a lot there, and hands are pretty sensitive. So it was, it was pretty scary, as far as I wasn't worried for my life or anything, but, my career, I was like, oh my gosh, is this really the smallest tip over in a turn? Just something we do daily, really.
Right.
I'm like,
I was going to bring that
Yeah.
up. Have you looked at the tape and seen that, watched yourself with that wreck?
It was literally, I mean, you're just like, I've done that 1,000 times.
Yeah, that's what I want to say. It's the weirdest thing on dirt bikes. Just it visually, as a spectator, you'd never guess that you'd walk away with this terrible injury from something that just looks so borderline harmless. You'd want to say it's like it's weird being in the seat versus watching. It's just the smallest little things that can turn into a catastrophic injury.
Yeah. I wish it was more violent and had a cool video to show.
Right.
It was like,
Well, I mean,
Starting out of
let's
nowhere.
take a look at remember the Dale Earnhardt accident in Daytona.
Right.
Remember that?
Exactly.
That was a crash that happened all the time. I mean,
Yep.
it's not like he flipped over 1,000,000 times and did all this crazy stuff through
Right.
the air. I mean, he just hit the wall, his car turned, and like you'd
You'd
think
never
that
guess.
he'd walk away from that, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. So thank God you're okay, though. That's the important part. We touched on a few things a little bit as early in the show, but the ISRT now has now run a full 17-round Supercross program. What goes into managing that kind of commitment? I know financially it's the sponsors, staying on top of that, things. But how about emotionally? How do you keep your team geared up, man? And like, what goes into managing that 17 rounds, throughout the season?
Yeah, so, man, I would say the foundation of that is having good people to start with. We've had plenty of years
Sure.
where there's some kind of outliers, you think they might be a good fit, you get going, and they, maybe they're not. And that consists of, riders, crew members, sponsors. I mean, there's even just wives and girlfriends, that's
Right.
like,
Yeah.
everybody has to mesh well. And it takes one person to kind of drag it down. So for my in my seat, obviously the leadership, I didn't realize, I still don't realize it as much as, how much these guys lean and trust me,
Right.
lean on me and trust me. So, and I got good guys that are responsible, and, they do their job and they do it very well, and I trust them. But, at the end of the day, when things go sideways, they got to look to somebody, and
Right.
that's me. So it's, you got to keep your head on, you got to keep your head high, you got to keep your head on
course.
straight
Yeah.
to be there for these guys all the time. If
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to go work for somebody that, throws a fit and gets angry, and just
Right.
kind of lashes out at people. It's like, hey, let's come up with a plan, let's resolve the issue, whatever it is. Every day there's something, it's,
Yeah. Sure.
How many personalities are you managing?
so we got 2 full-time riders right now, and then 3 full-time crew members, and then a couple part-time guys that are coming in for the races.
Got it.
So during the Supercross season, we'll have a couple more. Now that we're in the outdoor season, the Pro Motocross, we're a little bit leaner, mainly due to budgeting. I would love to hire a couple more guys if we had the budget, but
Yeah.
obviously we gotta continue to get to the races. So,
Right.
wear multiple hats. Last week, one of our mechanics, he had a family member pass away, so we had a funeral on Saturday.
Oh, man.
So I actually had to step in and be the mechanic for the one rider at the race. So
Mhm.
that was my first time playing the mechanic role.
You
I
pretty
kept my crew-
handy. You pretty handy with that stuff,
Yeah, I mean, I've done this a long time, so I've managed other guys and this, and I did forget my headset going down to the starting line
Oh,
of the race.
shoot.
Um,
No.
I'm used to everything else is good. I was like, I'm not used to putting the headset on to go to the starting line. So
Sure.
obviously, been many times where I've been going to the races, wearing the headset, from team manager tower, spotting on the side of the track, just monitoring and watching. But that was the first time I was down on the starting line, not as a rider, as the mechanic. So
Right.
I mean, it is different, but I think I got more frustrated being a mechanic than I was, just being the team owner or being the rider.
It makes
Tell your
sense.
rider to do something and you don't see him do it. It's like, come on, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's,
That's
but
cool.
it's good because then obviously, now I can. It was just a one time thing. I like to be able to be the type of owner that can jump in and do anybody's role. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it better than anybody, but
Yeah.
I can take care of what needs to be done.
Yeah. Lead by
so really
example.
no excuses from anybody when it comes down to that. It's like, well, I can do it, so, but I used to be the type of guy that would kind of shove that in somebody's face. It's like, well, I can do it, get out of the way, but
Yeah.
I learned that's not productive
And you
and that
matured.
doesn't help build people up. So I don't do that anymore. At least I try
Smart.
not to,
Right.
but, oh yeah, it's good though. Being the mechanic last weekend was, just kind of gives you more respect for those guys.
Sure. Yeah.
When the clock's ticking and they got a lot of work to get done, it's like, hey, you understand just a little bit more on what they need in certain times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned something cool about, I wouldn't want to work for a guy who blows his lid. And then you also earlier on mentioned how when you were younger, you were able to read the room. That kind of points towards empathy, which, and this is just an observation, but in my opinion, empathetic men and women are typically the best leaders in business. And it sounds like that's sort of trickled down into your team. And it makes sense why you guys are close knit and why they trust you.
Yeah, I mean, that's very well said. And, just kind of thinking back a little bit more, the foundation, what does it take for somebody to be like that? For me, it's my roots in faith, in Christ and in the Bible and all of
Nice.
that. Like that's where I learned that stuff, and that's what I try to, live, live the way Jesus would, right? So
Right. Clean.
There.
try is the,
Try. Yeah.
try.
It's hard. It's hard.
Right.
Absolutely.
we're never
Yeah.
doing that. But we
Love-
do try to and we strive to. So that's where my foundation's at. And, it's
Nice.
sometimes it does get overlooked, but most of the day we try to stay rooted.
That's excellent. All right. So the next question, you've made it clear that this isn't just a riding team. It's a real race organization. What were some of the steps that you took to shift ISRT from a grassroots team to an actual legitimate competitor in your eyes?
Man, just consistently being there is very big for that.
Showing up.
There's a lot of teams, the Supercross season is 17 races, the outdoor motocross 11. We have 3 playoff races. Showing up every week with somebody that's competitive on your bad weeks, just being there week in and week out. There's a lot of high level teams other than the true factory teams. There's a lot of high level teams that, miss some races over the years, this and that.
Yeah.
Having real resources, having real structure, when I say real resources and structure, full-time crew members, there's a lot of, in any racing world, right? There's a lot of part-time guys, and I learned it's difficult to take a part-time guy and push him into a full-time role,
Sure.
with full-time responsibility, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And especially alongside guys that are there full-time. It's a difficult balance, somebody shows up and they're
Definitely.
tired, if they're tired from their other job or if they're tired from the job that everybody else is doing, the balance is definitely different. So, in the resources, what I'm saying is, to have the things that a rider really needs to go compete, a suspension technician that's readily available, engine technician, ECU, guys that are readily available. All the parts, true testing, there's a lot of semis in our paddock that don't necessarily have all the parts to the motorcycle in it.
Right.
Literally. So, it's like cut costs, don't cut corners, like that to me is just as important now as it's ever been. So, when we can, get a motor swap done in 30 minutes and have the guy back out on the track, that's a very
Huge.
a
Yeah.
very strong, important thing. that there's a lot of teams in the pits where,
Huge.
some of the mechanics can't get that done,
Yeah.
So to me, that's, hey, we're doing stuff right. We're taking care of what we need to get,
Coming in
what
clutch.
we're there to do.
Yeah.
So, having riders come from the other side of the world and give them everything that they need to go compete, even a motor swap, between the races, in 30 minutes, like that's no easy task. So,
Absolutely.
so yeah, there's a lot to it, but just consistently being there and having the things you need and having the people there consistently is very, very crucial to
Believing
being a real
in the
organization.
mission. Yep. Believing in the mission and being consistent, man, that's huge. So of course.
Yeah, great message.
Bubba, outside of racing, you also spent years coaching riders through the Theodore Pauly Motocross, right? And USMCA. How has coaching influenced your own perspective as team owner and athlete?
Well, I got a rider coming out when we finish up this interview here. So, so I do, try to get a couple days a weekend doing some one-on-one coaching. I do some group classes throughout the year, but mainly one-on-one stuff. Again, we talk about personalities and people and, understanding riders, whether they're beginners or pros, anywhere in between,
Yep.
A 4-year-old or a 70-year-old. Like, I've coached and worked with all of them. So,
Nice.
I can learn a lot from what people are going through at different points of times, different angles of perspective on the tracks, from somebody getting tired and what age they're at, like how to kind of tap into their brain and keep them going and keep them motivated. That's the same thing that it takes with my crew and my, the riders as well. When they're dealing with an injury, it's like, how do I know what they need today?
Yeah. That's back to empathy, man.
Yeah, for sure. So, and then obviously as a rider myself, like looking at somebody struggle with something, it gives me a different perspective. Like, okay, well, I'm constantly polishing my own skill set as well when I'm sitting there, on the track with somebody. And lead by example is another thing that I really try to do as much as possible when I'm coaching is, go out and show them how to do it,
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Show them, try to replicate what they're doing as well. That's very difficult. I was working with a guy last week and I'm like, okay, so watch, like you don't think you're doing it like this, but this is the way I see you doing it. And it was hard for me to get in that position and make the mistake that he was making because it's not natural for me. I want to be, as perfect as possible in that section of the track. So I did it. And again, it was very, very uncomfortable, but then I did it the way it was comfortable for me and the proper way to go through that section. And he was like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I thought I was doing that, but I can see that I'm not. And we'd show him video, but the video isn't the same as watching somebody in person doing it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's a lot to be gained in just numerous different ways. But for me, the best part about coaching is making a difference in somebody.
Absolutely.
I've had numerous riders come from different backgrounds, whether it's a guy that, went through a divorce, and he just wants to go out and clear his mind and, learn something and be a better, safer rider, help him out, give him a good time through the day. Or it's a child that has, issues at home, and maybe get separated from his parents. Like I've been in that situation before.
Wow.
And you don't realize the difference that you make in some people's lives. Sometimes till later on. I had a guy a couple years ago, I didn't know it, but his wife committed suicide. And I just spent the day and, I was just kind of guiding the guy and helping him. It wasn't very complex, but it was, I found out later on what had happened. And, I was just like being there for that guy that day. And he enjoyed riding his dirt bike so much and got better throughout the day.
That's awesome, man.
You never know what somebody's coming to you for, but sometimes it's not to get better on a dirt bike. It's, to be with somebody that's going to just maybe give them some motivation for the day. And maybe that's what they need. So, it's very cool to have an impact on somebody, and especially the people that are very grateful for it. That's to me is so cool, to see somebody that's so appreciative and grateful for what you're doing and what you're
Gotta
getting.
be fulfilling, man.
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part: butt buffer cushions are made right here in the US for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a butt buffer for every rider's style. Get your butt buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
Bubba, let me ask you a quick follow up on that, on the coaching side of it. You've been in this industry now a long time. You're still a young man, but you've been in the industry long enough and now that you're coaching all these different levels, are you seeing, like, can you tell, like, somebody who's just natural or somebody who's going to take a little time, but is it easier to create a champion with a good attitude who may not be natural, or is it easier to create a champion of somebody who's natural but doesn't have the greatest attitude?
Well, it's not really answering your question, but we need both.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
No,
But what do you like to work with
yeah.
more? What do you like to work with more?
The attitude for sure. I tell riders all the time, a rider with a better attitude in a parking lot versus a rider with a bad attitude at the best track in the world is going to get a lot more accomplished with a good attitude. It's not about what you have; it's about how you look at it. So, same thing with the motorcycle. I mean, I see especially young kids show up with really nice good bikes, and they don't want to train, and they don't want to be coached, and they don't want to be just kind of pulled apart. And versus like the kid that shows up with the bike that's 10 years old and kind of ragged out, and his parents can barely afford it, and the kid listens to everything you say. I'm just like, oh, this kid's way better off.
I love
He
that.
might not be as good of a rider right now, but if he sticks with it, he's gonna be the kid that keeps riding and racing his whole life versus the kid that wants to do something else. It doesn't have to be a kid either. It could be professional guys. It could be vet riders.
Yep.
So the attitude to me is more important. And I would say the second thing behind that is can't be scared of the motorcycle. You can create the confidence by doing certain things, but most of the time if the rider is scared and very timid on the bike, that takes a long time to overcome, sometimes never. So,
And you see that a lot.
I can see that right away. Yeah. Just the way somebody takes off using the clutch. Like you can see that. You can see it with just the way they respond to the throttle. So it's there's a lot of things you can be taught and coached, but there's a lot of things you can't that just take time. So,
Natural, yeah.
Yeah. So typically if somebody's scared of the bike, they're just passionate and they like riding motorcycles. So I kind of shift towards that. They're typically not people that want to be competitive. And even at the pro level, right? Like there's guys that are not necessarily scared of the bike, but scared of the track. Like it takes a lot of work to get somebody to not be scared of the track. And that can be the biggest anchor of all.
Wow, that's amazing at the pro level. Holy smokes. You'd think at that point they're already like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of obstacles. There's a lot of guys they don't want to do. It's very intimidating. The risk is so high to do certain obstacles. And just if they have any doubt, you're not going to be competitive through that section.
Right.
In our game, it's a game of tenths and hundredths of seconds. So
Absolutely.
if you're losing anything, you're already behind.
Yeah. Right on. Fun next question, getting into some other things that you've done. You served nearly a decade as a volunteer, firefighter, and EMT. So how has that translated and shaped your leadership style, but also your mindset on and off the bike?
Leadership is huge when it comes to that.
Sure.
The fire chief at the time, Chris Johnson, really good guy. I remember I said numerous things to him. I think I gave him a Christmas card one time too, and just like thanked him for his leadership. And he's a super blue collar guy. Like, he was just doing what he felt like he needed to do, right? But like it made such a huge impact on me, just being the type of person that observes a lot. I would see him deal with things. I'm like, man, like I can tell you're biting your tongue so much right now, dealing
Yeah.
with people on both sides of the fence, right? Dealing with, civilians and,
Yeah.
patients and family members and dealing, the police side of things, the political side of
The
things.
politically, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the other firefighters too. I mean, there were some guys out there doing things with their own opinion involved that they shouldn't have been doing, and he's got to deal with that, clean that up. And, so, I learned a lot from him for sure. It's kind of right time to open your mouth, right time not to. And
Yeah.
he's a very good guy. And like I said, I don't think he realizes the impact that he had on me and just the structure too, going to the meetings and, within the fire department, seeing just the open book on, the funds and the budgeting and stuff that the fire department had to deal with and voting on things, making sure every member of the department had, a say in what was going on, and the structure from the drills and, everything that come in and training on all the equipment, being able to do, any one person's job at any point in time, being down on manpower, just so many different things. A rural volunteer department, I think our area was 60 square miles, I think. I could be wrong on that, but, there was very, very critical calls that in the middle of the summer, in the middle of the day, I'm in the shop and, all the other guys are working and there might be 2 people that show up on this call that requires, 30 people.
Wow.
It's like, and obviously we're mutual aid, other departments coming in, but, we're first on scene, and stuff like that was just like, hey, somebody's life is in danger right now. And, I'm not going to save their life, but I'm going to do everything I can to protect it. And, we got to get more people here. We got to keep everybody else, cool, calm, and collected, and, manage yourself and, not get yourself hurt, so there were so many good things that I learned from, and I really love being there for the community.
That's awesome.
I moved to a different area, so I had to step back, but my time was so thin too. The time at home over the years, I was spending less and less time at home, so it was harder
It's hard.
to commit to that. But the driving force to get me in there was when I was done racing. I always had to, from the little kid, I always wanted to be a firefighter, a career guy. And, I was 18 and I walked into another full-time department nearby, and I asked them, I'm like, what's the best way to do this? I figured there's only one way to figure it out, is ask somebody that's doing it.
That's right.
First thing they asked is, where do you live? And I said, well, I'm just outside of Hamel. And we'll go into the volunteer department there, get your feet wet before you do anything else. So,
Nice. Good
and
advice.
I'm so glad I did, because I learned that that's not something I wanted to do as a career, but
Mhm.
I was so drawn to just helping the community. You never know when it's going to be, your neighbor, your parent,
That's right.
your child, that needs something.
Yep.
We, did CPR on a guy and brought him back. He went down
Nice.
right in front of us, but to do that in the field was incredible.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that. And of course, we've done it many other times and the people don't come back, but that one time was, that was
Amazing.
cool, and never talked to the guy ever again, but, just knowing that, hey, I was a part of, bringing that guy back was
So
pretty
That's
cool.
amazing.
It would have been a
Amazing.
minute later, we wouldn't have had a chance to help him, but, the way it went down was very, very cool. And, I did learn too, the good's not good unless the bad is bad. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
The hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bad calls, it makes those good calls good. So,
Sure.
but yeah, definitely helped shape me to the guy I am today.
It's
Yeah.
cool. Let's get back a little bit into the branding partnerships, right? Because you partnered with like Mad Parts, FXR, and Kawasaki. What do you look for in brand partner? I know hopefully they pay their bills on time. That's obviously the most important. But like, what's one of the things that when you have brands reaching out to you now that your company's starting to grow and you're consistent out at the races, you know, what is one of the things that's important to you personally as a team owner?
Well, it's a two-way street. Like the first thing I follow up with anybody, whether I'm reaching out to them or they're reaching out to me, is what do you want? Everybody has a different expectations. Sometimes it's, just brand recognition. Sometimes it's they want to generate sales. Sometimes they just want, a tax write-off, like sometimes they want an experience for their family. You never know what somebody wants. I've seen it in some disciplines of racing. I haven't dealt with it, but some very high level companies that are known to every household in America, and the owner just likes racing or the CEO likes racing and they want to bring their family to 2 races a year and enjoy the race,
Cool.
I need to get that guy in here,
Yeah, those are the best.
yeah, but so understanding what the expectation is from the sponsor is the most important thing. People ask, well, what's it cost for this spot? Well, I can't just give you a price if I don't know what you want, because it might take us more work. It might take us less, so I used to have kind of cookie cutter outlines for, hey, this title sponsor costs this much, secondary sponsor costs this much, an associate sponsor on this part of the bike and gear costs this much. But I learned quickly that doesn't work. People that want to spend money in marketing and sponsorship, they want something that's personalized to them. And, you have to be able to deliver, exactly what they want. So it's very difficult. That's the most difficult thing that I do, is continue to bring in secure sponsorships. We went to the IndyCar race in St. Louis this last week on Sunday. We raced in Pennsylvania on Saturday, drove through the night, got back to the shop about 5:30. I slept for a couple hours and then we went down to the IndyCar race. But to me, that's a learning experience, right? In IndyCar, there's a lot more money rolling through IndyCar than Supercross. It's like, what do these teams do? How do these drivers and the team personnel, showcase their sponsors, and they host them and all of this stuff, So for me, it's a learning experience, and hopefully you meet the right guy, that could happen any day, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But, I didn't meet the right guy, but
Okay,
again,
not this time, but you will.
Yeah. Continue to learn just from, how those brands and partnerships and everything work, what we could bring to our sport, the hospitality, the presentation, the experience, all of that. So I believe we have one of the best platforms in the world when it comes to that. Sure, Supercross is a little bit more blue collar than, maybe IndyCar or, F1, MotoGP type of thing. But, that's the kind of what we strive to get towards, is bringing in, high level of, whether it's just investors or, sponsors, whatever is available, we got to be able to deliver to that. So too many people are stuck in their own ways and they don't want to do things differently. So being able to deliver, back to your point, being able to deliver to any sponsor for exactly what they need is difficult. But that's the first thing you got to figure out.
Yeah. IndyCar, it's not too bad of a place to do R&D also.
Yeah.
Not a bad gig. All right. So, Bubba, you just locked in your best result of the season. How does that moment fuel your goals moving forward?
Well, I guess one part we did kind of overlook was about a month ago was my final professional race. So,
let's get into that a little bit before you do this.
So, that obviously has part of that too, right? We talked about the injuries. You just brought up my career best result. So, going through the last few years, having my seasons end with having surgery, right?
Yeah.
It was very, very difficult. I'm 32 right now. 35 is kind of like the max for guys racing at our level. So, just I never wanted to end my career on an injury. And having more injuries later in my career than I had when I was younger is really taking a toll.
Yeah.
And finishing a full Supercross season, a full 17 rounds without a major injury that's taken me out I've done it many times earlier in my career, but I haven't done it the last few years. So I checked that box off. Hey, I did this again. Hey, I had a career best result this year.
Yeah.
The team's growing, I'm not getting any younger. My body's hurting more every day.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Wait till you're in your 50s, man.
Right. So I already
Everything
feel way
hurts.
better not training and competing daily. Of course, I'm still traveling just as much, with the team and everything. But I didn't say anything to anybody. I had some discussions with my wife throughout the year and in our series chaplain, but um, I nobody on my team knew. I'm like, hey, until the last gate drop of the season, I'm not done.
Right.
If I were to get hurt right before that, minutes before that, like I got to go again. Like I want to do everything I can to finish this whole season.
You wanted to go out your way.
Yeah, and so Salt Lake City, the 10th of May was my final race, and I knew it going into it. I'll probably get emotional here in a second, but man, that week, that race, just the travel, like that was like to me was the best race, the best week, the best of my career. It wasn't the best result, but I enjoyed it. And the only thing I really regret for my career is I wanted days like that more. Like I never, like it was everything just building up to that. The last day training at our practice track here at the shop and, driving home that day, I was just like, this is the last time, like I'm doing this as a professional with this meaning and this, everything behind it. And, flying to the race. I'm like, this is the last time I'm flying in as a competitor. That feeling is, the last night going to sleep, the night before the race, the last media riding session the day before, the last time I put my gear on, and the last time I closed my locker. It was like, it was very emotional.
That's heavy stuff, but also to make you laugh a little bit. It reminds me of playing basketball and not being able to leave the court until you hit a basket and make a shot. So it's great that you got to make that shot, no injuries. That's huge.
Well, not just that. I mean, I think you were going back into it was more different than anything else. It was because when you're competing at the high level that you've competed in for such a long period of time in your life, right? Everything is pressure. You got sponsors, you got a team name, you got this brand. And here you are for the first time, probably since that 11-year-old kid getting up to his first race, right? With this smile on his face and all this eagerness. Now you know that this is the last time. This is my last journey. I'm just going to enjoy it no matter how I end up, where I end up, as long as I make it through, cross that finish line, man. And you just enjoyed every lap. And that's probably something that you hadn't done in so long because of the pressure of everything else in your life, of being both racer and team owner.
Yeah, for sure. And, it was one of those things too, where I knew like whatever happened, it doesn't matter. Like Monday, I'm a different guy. Like, not a different guy, but my role is 100% different come Monday. It was, I no longer, everything that I did 24/7, every sip of water I took was related to, going out and being the best athlete I could be for so long. And knowing that, it was just like, it's not anymore, and obviously you guys can see I still get emotional about it, and it's been a month, but
Understandably so.
I will forever be grateful for that.
That's right.
Knowing that was my last race, and it's even a bit more too. There's been riders that Jerry Robin had a career-ending injury this year that was it's pretty bad. He's still in rough shape, and I feel it for him, man. Like he got it kind of taken from him, and his life's forever changed, and that's that just it. There's a lot. I mean, there's so much risk in everything that we do, and we all acknowledge that, right? Like it could happen at any point in time. I get on the bike later today. I mean, there's no promises, right?
Right.
But I'm very, very blessed. I will say that.
That's
thank
awesome.
God you made it out the way you did.
That's
right. So cool.
All right, man. So we're looking ahead now to 2025 and beyond. What's the vision for ISRT? More riders, new sponsors, maybe something bigger than just racing? What's happening? What's the vision now as you're just strictly team owner?
So we did launch our amateur program, which is, designed to bring riders in from the top tier amateur ranks and transition them into the pro level. We signed a rider, Tristan Dalton. Fortunately, he got injured last week, so he's going to be out for a few months,
Bummer.
which is again part of the game, But with us being in his corner, working with him through that, we're hoping just to give him some the guidance and structure to continue to come back from that injury the best way possible, right? He's a 17-year-old kid, I know being in that position, there's a lot of stuff that I did wrong. I came back too soon, I didn't have structure, I didn't build back into it,
Right.
helping the next generation is very important. Obviously, building the organization to a race caliber winning organization has always been the goal, right? We want to have, we want to go to the top, from the grassroots level and build it all the way up. So that's always, in our sight, we want to continue to build towards that. Bring in bigger sponsors, investors, everything like that is what it takes to get there. So, we have a big long list of sponsors, and try to deliver for all of those guys all the time. But ideally, if we could zone it down and have, a smaller list of sponsors, but a higher level of investment would be, would make things easier for sure. I say would make it easier, but it's also going to have more pressure, right? So, it's the goal with the team is to continue to grow everything that we've been doing. Obviously, I'm not competing now, so I'm going to be putting more and more time into the team. But it's a lot of work, I wouldn't, if I were not racing through this time, the team would have never gotten to this level. So,
Yeah.
Now that I'm transitioning into that full, owner boss stage, it's, if the timing is right for sure. I learned I learned a lot to be able to be in this position full time now. So it's I'm excited.
Yeah, it's exciting in its own way.
Bubba, quick question. You have two riders now that are racing for the team. I'm asking really more for myself. Then, do you have like people in the wings that maybe if something happens that are you practicing other riders in addition to the two main riders just in case, say, somebody gets hurt or something happens? Like, how does that work when you only have two riders on the team, just in case, for backup?
Yeah,
just
no,
for
that's a great
educational
question.
purposes.
So, yeah, we had so originally we started this season with myself and Freddie Noren. Freddie dislocated his shoulder. He missed 2 races, so we brought Logan Heitzel in as a fill-in guy. Logan had connections with the dealership Southeast Sales that backs us. It worked out well where he didn't have a lot of other sponsor obligations. He was ready to race. We already had mutual sponsors, so we brought him on to test the bike. He competed the very next week as a fill-in. He showed a lot of promise. It was a pretty good fit right off the bat, so we kept him on.
Sweet.
So we did a 3-rider effort through the, better half of the 2025 Supercross season, and then we kept him on for the summer portion through the outdoors. So yeah, to answer your question, we're always having riders come to us, hey, what's available? Is, can the space, middle of the season is difficult because a lot of riders already have their stuff figured out. They already have sponsorship obligations with whether it's a team or independent. So there's not a lot of guys that are available to step in then, but we do have a list of riders that we're constantly in contact with that, if it's the end of the season, might be ready for next year. Typically at the end of the season, the phone is constantly ringing with riders looking for support.
Right on.
Got it. Thank you for that.
All right. Okay, before I get into the last question before the speed round, I have to ask you, do you have kids?
I do not have kids.
Not yet. Okay. I was hoping you did because that might make my question a little bit more likely to happen. But when are you going to come out with youth sizes for your merch, man?
Yeah, that's another thing, man. That's the handling the merchandise and stuff it's tough, right? Like, having stuff up to date, getting
and
the
it's
website
expensive
up,
too on top of that.
and then making sure everything's taken care of on that. But
Yep.
no, we between my wife and I, we have added up the other day, like 12 nieces and nephews, and they're all like under the age of 10. Like it's
Yeah,
crazy.
come on, man.
So we have a lot of
That's
little kids
funny,
in our
dude.
lives. So
Yeah.
we're gonna wait a little bit till the traveling kind of slows down.
You-
Obviously, I'm done competing now at the
You're
professional
still a
levels.
young guy, man.
Right on.
Yeah, I didn't want to have kids while I was racing professional. That was just something that
Yeah.
my wife and I were like,
That's
not happening.
responsible.
too
Good
much,
call.
too much risk, too much,
Yeah, too much
too
responsibility.
much everything.
And then
Yep.
too much to lose. Yeah. All right. So the last question for privateer riders or young racers listening, what's your real unfiltered advice about building your own path in a sport where big money often rules the podium?
Man, if I were to simplify that into a quote, I've been using this quite a bit. There's a lot more to being a pro than just going fast.
Right on.
And that means figure yourself out, make a brand for yourself, learn how to be professional, under promise, over deliver. You know, when you're not racing, you still have to provide value to people. Some people think that, you know, especially kids, you know, oh, I'm winning these races. I got these amateur championships, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Just like you.
Well, yeah, everybody does, right? You know, like you
Right.
got to be different. You know, in today's 2025, you know, like you can't just be a winning face unless you're just so dominant. You still need a personality. You still need to have business structure behind it. You know, you're trying to sell something to somebody, you know, give them something to buy.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Product.
yeah, it's, so yeah, I think it's changing for sure. I see it. The kids are now becoming, you know, more kind of business savvy, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yep.
But, you know, it's important, you know, there's a lot more to going fast.
No question.
Right on. Yeah. So start learning about those other aspects of the business. That would
Yeah.
be wide. Yeah. All right. So where we'll add your social links and everything in your website to the show notes. So you don't have to spell anything out, but where is the best place, or where are the best places for people and that massive sponsor, you know, to find you and potentially sign up?
So we have our team website is sxraceteam.com. We're on Instagram at sxraceteam, on YouTube at sxraceteam. Of course, my personal stuff, Bubba Pauli. You know, I'm on LinkedIn. We have an email chain that list a newsletter that we send out every week as well.
Nice.
So
Who handles that? I was wondering. That's a lot of work. That's cool,
That's
man.
a lot of work, man.
yeah, so yeah, those are it's a Wednesday feature. So
Okay.
typically it's Tuesday right now. So you know, I'll gather all the stats and everything on a Tuesday evening from the weekend and the race results, and write a story, put together a newsletter, and
Yeah.
send it out. And I do post it on LinkedIn as well. I try not to share it to general social media stuff. I try to keep it a little bit more exclusive.
Okay.
So, but
Where do you sign up for the newsletter?
I don't really have anywhere in particular. Just whenever I, you know, connect with people, like I said, I try to keep it a little bit more exclusive. So,
Okay. Gotcha.
you know, just a DM. Anytime I grab somebody's email, I just make sure that they're good with it if I add them to the email list.
Okay. Cool.
So I think there's 300 or so emails on there.
Nice.
You know,
And sign
between
us up on that.
sponsors.
Yeah,
Get
I'm
us-
about to buy
Sure.
some swag, so you'll have my email after I grab the merch, right?
Yeah.
All right,
So
cool.
we can, yeah. And then anytime anybody shoots me just a DM on whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, you know, whatever.
All right.
You know, I add people to that list as well. So,
Cool.
but for me, I like to keep it as exclusive as possible. You know, let those people know, hey, they're the first one kind of getting this stuff, and you know, direct communications. You know, it's important.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man.
Awesome.
Well, all right. Listen, so you've retired from going fast. So now we're going to take you to the speed round here. So we'll unretire you for 2 minutes on the clock. Here's the deal. If you don't make the 2 minutes, you send Ben and I a signed picture from your race team.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Just the Gang Worldwide podcast, so we can hang it back here in our offices and proudly wave our own merch back here with you and your team. All right. Deal?
Oh, I think I'll send you that either way. So,
All right.
Yes.
Killer. All right, Ben. Let's put 2 minutes on the clock.
All right.
ding.
All right. Full throttle or finesse? What's your racing style?
Finesse.
Favorite part of race day?
Winning.
Nice. I like that. Okay, one track you've been on. What one track you have on the bucket list to race, or have you raced them all?
Oof. There's a few tracks in Europe that I really want to ride. I haven't gotten to ride yet, so I definitely have not been on all of them.
Okay, cool. Off-season program: ride, gym, or cold IPAs?
A lot of sweat, a lot of gym, a lot of riding.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Greatest rookie mistake most young racers make when racing?
Lack of patience.
Lack of patience. Interesting. Okay. All right, go-to post-race meal: pizza, barbecue, or something else?
Something else. Like a
Whoa.
burrito.
Burrito.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Good call.
All right. What's tougher, coaching or racing?
Well, if you're never good enough, so racing.
That's funny. All right. If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would you choose?
Oof. And James Stewart, my childhood idol.
James Stewart. Nice. All right. Good one. That's a good one. All right. Best comeback moment for you personally as a rider?
Probably my injury from my hand. Being able to get back and starting the next season after that took a lot of determination, a lot of work.
How much physical therapy did you have to go through? Or are you still going through it?
7 months, I think I was in
Wow.
PT. So yeah,
Wow. Okay. Preferred dirt surface: rocky, sandy, or rutted?
rutted.
Rutted. One word you want associated with ISRT?
Honorable.
Keller.
Nice.
Love it. Best motorcycle built in your opinion?
The current race bike we currently have under the team right now, the KX450.
KX450. Kawasaki, man. Great job. All right. Best racer you ever competed against?
My childhood idol, James Stewart.
Really? You competed against him? Wow, that's cool.
Yep.
Well, he was just that good, huh?
His final professional Supercross race, I was in. He crashed. I beat him. Probably the only time I've ever beaten him. But he did finish the race, so it's not like he DNF'd. But
Right.
I did beat him in that race.
What do you think makes these guys so special? Like the ones that are always finishing first?
Man, the confidence in the people.
Yeah. Okay. I've always wanted to ask that. All right. Next one. Finish this sentence. When I'm on my bike,
Free.
love it. Last question. How many bikes do you have in your garage right now?
20 something. Yeah, we got a full
okay.
shop at the moment.
Hey, do you ride street at all or just dirt?
I got a little Vespa scooter I ride around on.
Okay, that's funny. What do you bring that
My
to the
dad's got
races?
some vintage bikes. My dad's got some vintage Honda, like 175s and stuff. So.
Wow, nice. That's cool. Well, you did it, man. Actually, you did it. And it was 2 minutes and 1 second. So we do get that signed photo, man. But hey, in all sincerity, brother, thanks so much for taking the time out of your schedule. I know you got to, Ben and I both know you have so much on your plate right now, but thanks for getting us giving us a chance to get to know you, letting our audience get to know you, man. You're an awesome guy. We have 2 humongous fans here in Florida, and hopefully everything keeps going upward the way you've been working hard at this. So keep up the amazing work.
Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll have to get you guys out to some races and hang out with us, get you some team passes, and experience the ISRT race days. Keep an eye
That
on our
would be
schedule.
amazing. Hey, do you come down to Florida at all?
We will not be there for the rest of this year, but we rate to Daytona at the Speedway, and then we race at
That's easy.
Tampa this year as well. So we've already completed our races.
Okay.
When is the Florida normally on the schedule yearly?
Typically February, March.
February, March.
Right
All
on.
right, Ben, you and I
We're the
next.
start. The Supercross at Daytona is the start of Bike Week, and we're on the infield of the Speedway there.
Okay,
Oh,
cool. Cool.
Yep.
That's
And then
perfect.
we're at the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa.
We'll
All
be
right.
there.
Hey, you can take your kids, Ben. I'll take my son. I think that'd be pretty darn
Yeah.
awesome, man. To see
Absolutely.
and just be able to watch what you do every day. So
Hey, that invite goes for any potential sponsors out there as well. So we'd love to have you come out to the race and
yes,
treat you to a day of with the teams.
that's
Yes.
good.
Good
man.
time.
Absolutely. What to actually, it's worth it to ask if I were a business who's never sponsored a team, what would I be looking at receiving as far as that sponsorship goes? How would you guys better my business?
Well, again, it comes back to what you want, right? So if you're a local business and we're racing in your city, obviously we'll promote the brand through all of our social channels, through the pit party at the races. We'll see upwards of 25,000 people at the pit party.
Nice.
Personalized autograph posters, discount codes and stuff we're handing out to all the fans.
Cool.
Sometimes it's just social stuff. Sometimes it's B2B, getting in with certain distributors, that we have connections with, to sell
Gotcha.
products, this and that.
Right.
So
Yep.
numerous different ways. Sometimes it's employee incentive programs. We've had certain sponsors come out and they bring 50 employees with them and we treat them to a day at the race. We book a suite
Oh,
for
man.
them and all that
That's
type
awesome.
of thing. So, I've had some really good feedback from that too, when, Monday morning and the whole crew goes back to the office and they're just pumped from the weekend, like cool to hear that, kind of get the morale
Yeah.
and the energy up from the crew just based on what we were able to offer them from the weekend.
Yeah.
Right on. Thanks for answering that, Bubba. Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate you, man. Thanks for your time. This was great. We're looking forward to seeing you in person soon.
Man, can't wait. Hey, wait, I promise you this, man. We'll be there for the Daytona one 100%. Okay. 100%. And we'll stay in touch with you just to be able to shake your hand, man. And we just watch what you do behind the scenes. Would be an honor.
Sounds good. Thank you guys. I appreciate the time.
Thank you,
All right.
Bubba, so much. All right, hold on.